Hello YouTube, welcome to Race Car Fabrication and Restoration. I'm Gene Humphrey. As always, thanks for joining me today. Well, as I stated in our last episode, unfortunately I lost my brother, my middle brother Gene Humphrey, on the 16th of June. And it's really important to me and to our family that we let you know who Gene Humphrey was. He was a great Christian man, a great racer, a great engine builder. So today we're going to take a few minutes and look at Gene and just the man he was. So right along with us. This is a still shot that I took from video number 268, which I just posted a couple weeks ago. It's from Memorial Day weekend, 2023, and our whole family was up there racing. My son Ryan, my nephew Trent, and my son-in-law Heath was running. And always in typical fashion, this is Gene coming back from the grandstands after the races were over with. We had a great night. Ryan ran second, Trent ran fifth, and Heath ran sixth. And Gene was always there to be, you could rely on him if we needed help with obviously with any motor issues. But you can see he's got his race receiver clipped on his shirt there. He was all-time monitoring race control, and then he'd come back and offer any driving advice or any setup, maybe not so much setup advice, but a lot of driving advice if he needed to give to his nephews. So he was always right there in the mix of things. But we're going to go backwards, and we're going to start how he first got involved in racing, and we'll pick it up there. This is Gene with our first race car that my family owned. My oldest brother Douglas bought this car back in 1975. It was what they called a coupe or early model class car. It had a quick change rear end, big block Chevrolet. This was the top and fastest class there was. And this would be the first family car that Gene would ever race. And we kind of had several different people drive it, but this was the first family-owned car that Gene actually drove. He only drove it one or two nights, but this would be where everything officially started. Gene first started racing his own car in 1978. He ran about half of the season, then came back in 1979. Well, this is the same car he ran in 78. We just freshened it up, putting some new skin on it, painted it, and so forth. And Gene came back and ran the full season in 1979, actually winning the track championship, his first full year of racing here at Boot Hill Speedway. The 1979 racing season actually started at the Louisiana State Fairgrounds Raceway there in Shreveport, Louisiana. It was a half-mile high-bank asphalt track that's since then been torn down, but Gene actually ran the first 4 weeks of the 1979 season there on asphalt. Then when we went to the dirt track and ran the full dirt season, then we came back and finished up the season back on pavement again. The first 4 weeks that Gene ran there at the Louisiana State Fairgrounds, he won every race. I think he won every one, maybe with the exception of maybe one. He won every heat race, he won every trophy dash, and he won every feature there on the pavement. Then we went to dirt, and as I said earlier, he went ahead and won the dirt track championship as well. We came back and finished up the year on asphalt, on pavement, but the car just been tweaked so much it wasn't running that well, wasn't driving that well, and we were going through tires just right and left. So he ended up missing the last night. He decided not to go to the last race that they had there at the Fairgrounds Speedway, which we wish we would known, because that ended up being the last race ever run on that track. He always regretted not getting to run that last race, but the car wasn't driving good, but he still finished second in points as far as the championship there on pavement. Gene Humphrey was a very good race car driver, very calculated, very smooth, never took chances, and yet won a lot of races without making anybody mad. It was amazing how smooth he was, and just took care of his equipment. If the car wasn't there, he wouldn't push the issue. I guess you could say he drove a lot like Mark Martin, just very smart, very calculated. But besides his driving ability, he was an incredible motor builder. He built all of our motors for all of our race cars for 50 years. If you can imagine that, he goes back to 1973 when he was a senior in high school, working for the Future Farmers of America, or being a member of the Future Farmers of America. We had shop class down there. He built his first race car motor in the high school shop, and he built it down there in 1973 as a senior in high school, and that motor went on to power the hobby stock car it was in to the Bayou Speedway Track Championship in 1973. Can you imagine a high school senior building a championship winning motor? That's what my brother did, and he was very particular. Wouldn't build motors for a lot of people. He would build them sometimes for our friends, but always for us in-house. He assembled his motors, always made a lot of horsepower, and the most important thing, they were reliable. They never blew up, never came apart. He was very meticulous in the way he assembled motors. We had a friend of ours, John McLemore, up at PTS Racing Engines. They would do the machine work for us, but Gene always did the assembly on the motors. As crazy as this sounds, Gene did not race in 1980 after winning his first track championship, first of 3 track championships in 1979. The track started changing the rules around on the cars, and they kind of got out of hand, especially with the tires and the motors. It wasn't going to do anything but drive the cost of the car class up, so we had elected not to race anymore. Now, Gene did drive a night or two in some friends' cars, people who wanted some advice how the car was driving, but really didn't do anything until 1984. Now, I started racing in 1983, and just like Gene, I ran half of the season, the second half of the 1983, where he ran the second half of the 1978 season. Then I came back in 1984 and won track championship, just like he did in my first full year of racing, just like he did his first full year in 1979. Well, in 1984, they had a mechanics race one night, and this was the first night that Gene really got in a car. He could go run as hard as he wanted to because it was his motor in my car. But he got out there and won the mechanics race. This is a great night. I think this was Labor Day weekend in 1984. And this is my oldest brother, Douglas, on the right. That's me in the middle, and that's Gene on the left. And he won mechanics trophy. Like I say, that's behind my head there. And then I went on that night and won the Labor Day, big Labor Day race. And it was really, really cool for both of us to win that same night, driving the same car. And Gene was super, super good at making high horsepower motors. And we took advantage of the rules, and we had a really fast car and had a great year in 84 and winning 12 features in that one year, thanks to Gene and his horsepower. Gene returned back to racing in the late 80s and early 90s, running the Superstock class. This was an all-out racing chassis, basically a limited late model. You had a stock front clip, but the rest of the car was all tubular, and you could run, 14-inch late model tires, but he had a lot of success in the Superstock class as well. When the MCA Modified started getting real popular around the country, Gene swapped from the Superstocks. The track actually dropped the Superstock class, and they went to the IMCA Modifieds. And Gene built one of the very first IMCA Modifieds that was built in Louisiana. Even actually before the track announced they were going to go to him, he said, "Hey, I'm going to build one of these because they're cost effective." He said, "I will go and run one of these, even if I have to go travel a little bit." But Gene went on to win 2 track championships at Boot Hill Speedway in the IMCA Modifieds. It was a great class for us. Even though it had a claim rule, it worked out well because with us building our own motors, we could build good motors relatively inexpensively. And even though he had a claim rule and Gene lost several motors, it didn't matter. But he had a very successful career driving IMCA Modifieds before finally giving up behind the wheel, his time behind the wheel, and just becoming motor builder and advisor for us after that. I have a short video clip that captures Gene from our early family days all the way up to him being the official advisor and counselor for Humphrey Racing. And along the line, it shows all of the cars and some of his street cars he had through the years and all the racing he did and some of the vehicles he built. But I did want to share this before we get to that final video. This is Gene and Paul Newman. This is a crazy story, but it's worth telling. Paul Newman had a movie that was called Blaze. It came out in 1989. It was basically a documentary about one of our former governors of Louisiana, Governor Long, and I encourage you to watch it. It's a little bit adult language in some places, but it is a pretty funny movie and pretty accurate on the politics of Louisiana. But Paul Newman played the governor. Well, the movie, a large portion of the movie was filmed in our little hometown of Saline, Louisiana, which is only about 800 people. That's where we were from and where we were raised out of. But you could not get around Paul Newman at all. I mean, everybody go there and just droves of people try to get to him. You couldn't see him. They had everything roped off. Well, Gene came up with a bright idea. He said, hey, if I load up the race car and take it down there, and this is a super stock, his limited late model, he said, I'm going to go there and just park it in the background. Well, they got done filming one afternoon, and Paul Newman came out and saw that race car. He made a beeline straight over there to talk to Gene. It was so funny. And all the people down there, oh, my God, he's getting to talk to Paul Newman. But he got to spend time with Paul. And the rumor is that Paul Newman had actually gone to Boot Hill Speedway. I never could confirm this when they were filming this movie, but going up there incognito with a ball cap and with shades and would go up there and actually watch the dirt track races. I actually heard one time, like I say, I was unable to confirm this, but he had actually pulled out a bunch of cash and just added money to the purses a couple of nights. I don't know if that's true or not. That may be a wise tale, but I can tell you, he did talk to my brother, and here's the proof. But being a racer, that's how you get a movie star who also likes racing. That's how you get to talk to him. But they talked for a little while. And that's actually Trent, the little boy there, who drives a Modified now. That's him when he was little. But there's a great picture of Gene and Paul Newman both discussing what they love, and that's car racing. That was just a very, very short section of Gene's life, some of the things he was involved with. He was also a very accomplished motorcycle racer, which we all did growing up. And he was just a good guy. Most importantly, he was a Christian and a man of God, and faithfully served his church. And he was a church treasury there at our little home church back in Saline, Louisiana. But I do have a video I want you to watch. It's only 2 minutes long, but it does kind of capture everything, some of his projects all the way up just up to his passing. But just in case you were wondering, Gene was 67 years old, born in 1955, born November the 27th of 1955. He had been diagnosed with cancer in his kidneys about 3 or 4 years ago, or maybe 5 years ago. They went there and they took out one kidney. Well, just in his routine checkup, they found that the cancer had come back. And they decided to do a treatment with a product or medicine called Keytruda. And unfortunately, Gene was one of 10 people in the world. Imagine that, one of 10 people in the world. There's millions of people who's had this Keytruda treatment. It's a blood infusion. He had a negative reaction to the blood infusion and actually spent about 7 days in the ICU on his back. Finally made it to a private room, but we think that a blood clot must have came loose and must have gone to his heart, and he went downhill in just a matter of a couple hours and ended up passing away about 10:52 on the night of the 16th. So tough for me to talk about still. It's just a couple weeks ago, but Gene was a good guy. Always looked after me as his little brother, and I hope you enjoy his video. And I know where he's at, and I look forward to seeing him again. Love you. We'll see you next time on Race Car Fabrication and the Registration. God bless you.